She was scrubbing the lobby floors when the CEO stopped dead in his tracks. Not because the floor shined. Not because she was in his way. But because of the words that came out of her mouth. In less than 5 minutes, this woman, wearing a faded janitor's uniform, spoke to 3 different strangers in 3 different languages. Mandarin to one. Spanish to another. French to a third. Each time, fluent. Effortless. Like she'd been doing it her whole life. Executives in pressed suits walked past her every day without a second glance. To them, she was invisible. Just a janitor. But in that single moment, the CEO realized he wasn't looking at a cleaner. He was staring at someone extraordinary. Her name was Denise Atwater. And what happened next would shake the walls of his company, rattle the boardroom, and change Denise's life forever. The lobby of Hallberg International buzzed like any other Monday morning. Phones rang, heels clicked across the polished marble floor, and conversations blended into a low hum. Nobody noticed the janitor pushing her mop bucket in the corner. Nobody ever did. But then it happened. A visitor from Beijing stood in the center of the lobby, lost and struggling with directions. Before the receptionist could react, Denise walked over. With a calm smile, she spoke in flawless Mandarin, guiding the man step by step. The receptionist froze, stunned. Before anyone could process what they'd just heard, a delivery man appeared, paperwork in hand, mumbling in Spanish. Once again, Denise switched without hesitation. Not a word broken, not a phrase stumbled. It was natural, like breathing. And then came the third. A vendor pacing nervously, clutching his portfolio, muttering to himself in French. Denise caught his struggle and gently reassured him, in his own language. Perfect accent, perfect fluency. 3 conversations. 3 different languages. Back to back. The lobby, usually indifferent to her presence, suddenly turned quiet. Even the receptionist leaned over the counter, staring at her as if she were someone entirely new. But no one was more shocked than the man who had been walking by at that exact moment, the CEO himself. The CEO didn't just walk past. He stopped. For a moment, he studied her, as if trying to decide whether what he'd witnessed was real. Then, without a word, he motioned for Denise to follow him. The receptionist's jaw nearly hit the desk. A janitor? Being called upstairs? That simply didn't happen. Inside the elevator, Denise clutched her mop handle like a shield. The silence was heavy, broken only by the hum of the rising floors. Then the CEO finally spoke. How many languages was that? Denise hesitated. Her eyes dropped, voice soft. 9. The CEO blinked. 9? She nodded. 9 languages, plus Latin. I like learning. The elevator doors opened to the top floor, a world Denise had only ever seen in passing reflections. Plush carpets. Glass walls. The kind of offices where decisions worth millions were made. For 13 years, she had cleaned these halls at night. Now, she was being escorted into them by the man who owned the building. As they walked toward his office, one thought pulsed through her mind: why now? Why me? Inside the CEO's office, Denise sat stiffly on the edge of a leather chair, hands folded in her lap. For a moment, she looked like she wanted to melt into the walls. But when the CEO leaned forward and asked, "Where did you learn to do that?" Something inside her broke open. Denise took a slow breath. Then, for the first time in years, she told her story. She had been a brilliant student once. A linguistics major with a full scholarship, hungry to master every language she could get her hands on. Professors praised her. Classmates envied her. She was supposed to graduate at the top of her class. But life had other plans. Her mother fell gravely ill. Tuition money turned into hospital bills. Then her father died suddenly, and the weight of responsibility crushed her dreams. Denise left school, trading textbooks for night shifts. Soon, she became a single mother herself. Cleaning jobs were steady, and steady was all she could afford. Through it all, though, she never stopped learning. Books borrowed from libraries. Audio tapes played on long bus rides. Conversations snatched with anyone who would talk. She practiced when nobody was listening. She built fluency in silence. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Most people never asked. They just saw the uniform. They never saw me. The CEO didn't speak right away. He just sat back, staring at the woman in front of him, a woman the entire company had walked past for over a decade, blind to the brilliance that was hiding in plain sight. The CEO didn't say much after hearing Denise's story. He simply nodded, thanked her for her honesty, and let her return to work. For Denise, that seemed like the end of it, just another moment that would fade into memory. But the very next morning, her phone rang. It was the CEO's office. "Denise," his assistant said, "we need you upstairs. Now." Her heart pounded as she hurried up the same elevator she had cleaned countless times. When the door slid open, she was met with chaos. A group of Brazilian executives had arrived hours early for a high-stakes meeting. The company's professional translator? Stuck in traffic. The CEO's staff? Panicking. Millions of dollars hung in the balance. The CEO spotted her and wasted no time. "Denise. Can you handle this?" She froze. For a split second, doubt clawed at her. Then she remembered all those nights studying alone, whispering Portuguese phrases until they stuck. She straightened her shoulders, stepped into the boardroom, and began to speak. The Brazilian's eyes lit up instantly. Her Portuguese was effortless, confident, even charming. She didn't just translate, she connected. She laughed at their jokes, smoothed over cultural nuances, and turned what could have been a disaster into a conversation that flowed like old friends catching up. When the meeting ended, the executives shook her hand warmly. One leaned close to the CEO and said, "She's better than any interpreter we've worked with this year." The room buzzed with whispers. Staff exchanged stunned looks. And the CEO? He sat back, watching Denise in silence, realizing that the woman holding a mop yesterday had just saved his company today. The very next day, Denise was summoned once again to the CEO's office. She entered cautiously, still half expecting to be thanked and then quietly dismissed back to her mop and bucket. But this time, the CEO didn't ask her to sit. He stood instead, pacing slowly behind his desk, as though weighing every word. Then he looked directly at her. "Denise," he said firmly, "you don't belong on the night shift. You belong in this room." Her eyes widened. He explained that the company was creating a new position, cultural liaison for international affairs, and he wanted her to fill it. She wouldn't just be translating. She'd be representing the company at the highest level, guiding global partnerships, and shaping international strategy. Denise's first reaction wasn't joy. It was fear. "Sir," she whispered, "I've been a janitor for 13 years. People will think this is charity. A pity promotion." But the CEO shook his head. "This isn't pity. This is recognition. You've earned it every day you've walked into this building. We were too blind to see it." By the end of the week, Denise Atwater's nameplate was taken off the custodial closet and placed on a glass office door overlooking the skyline. The news spread like wildfire through the building. Some employees admired her. Some envied her. And others whispered bitterly in hallways, questioning how someone without a degree, without corporate experience, could suddenly leap into the ranks of leadership. But while the chatter grew louder, Denise sat at her new desk in silence. For the first time in over a decade, she wasn't invisible. She was undeniable. The promotion made headlines inside the building, but not everyone was celebrating. In fact, some saw it as an insult to everything they had worked for. It didn't take long for the confrontation to come. During her very first week in her new role, Denise walked into a boardroom packed with senior executives. At the far end of the table sat Eleanor Craig, a veteran board member with 30 years of corporate scars and victories to her name. Eleanor's sharp eyes narrowed as Denise took her seat. The meeting began, but it didn't take long before Eleanor cut in. Her voice was cold, every word dripping with challenge. "Tell me, Ms. Atwater, how exactly do you expect to lead international negotiations when you have no degree, no corporate training, no credibility? We're running a global business, not a classroom language club." The room went silent. Some executives smirked, others looked down, avoiding Denise's eyes. It was the kind of moment meant to break her. But Denise didn't flinch. She met Eleanor's stare with steady calm. "You're right," she said softly. "I don't have the degree. I don't have the training. What I do have are results. Yesterday, I saved a deal that could have cost this company millions. Not because of a title, but because I understood people. That's something no diploma on the wall can teach." The silence that followed was different this time. Respectful. Even grudging. Eleanor leaned back in her chair, lips tight. For the first time, she had no comeback. Denise had faced resistance head-on, and instead of shrinking, she proved she belonged. Once the resistance quieted, Denise finally had room to prove herself. And she wasted no time. Within weeks, she was sitting across from vendors and clients who once slipped through the company's fingers. Where others saw walls of cultural misunderstanding, Denise built bridges. Contracts that had been stalled for months were suddenly back on track. Miscommunications that cost millions were dissolved with a single conversation. Her fluency wasn't just in languages, it was in people. She could read a room, sense tension before it cracked, and turn hostility into trust. For the first time, Hallberg International wasn't just competing overseas, it was thriving. But Denise's transformation didn't stop in the boardroom. Around the office, people began to notice the way she treated everyone the same. Interns, assistants, security guards, she greeted them with the same respect she once wished for herself. Slowly, the staff who had once whispered about her began seeking her advice. Some asked for mentorship. Others simply wanted to hear her story. And Denise never bragged. She listened. She encouraged. She reminded people that talent didn't need permission, it only needed persistence. Her influence grew so quickly that the CEO made a bold decision. He launched a new initiative called The Voice Inside. The program was designed to uncover hidden talent across the company, the people who were overlooked, underestimated, or ignored, just like Denise had been. Suddenly, the janitor who had once gone unseen was reshaping the culture of an entire corporation. Months later, Denise found herself standing backstage at a global leadership summit. Her palms were damp, her heart racing. In front of her sat an audience filled with CEOs, diplomats, and leaders from every corner of the world. People who had spent decades building careers she could only dream of, and now, they were waiting to hear her. When her name was called, Denise walked onto the stage. The lights blinded her for a moment, but then she saw the faces leaning forward, curious. She took a breath and began. She didn't open with corporate jargon. She didn't bury the audience in data or strategies. Instead, she told the truth. Her truth. "I was never just a janitor," she said, her voice steady. "I was someone who studied, who learned, who prepared, even when no one was watching. For years, I was ready, but nobody looked long enough to see it." The room went still. You could feel the weight of her words pressing into every corner of the hall. Then, slowly at first, the audience rose to their feet. Applause thundered, echoing through the walls. In that moment, Denise wasn't just representing her company. She was representing everyone who had ever been overlooked. Everyone whose talent had been buried under uniforms, job titles, or assumptions. Her story became more than a promotion. It became a movement. Proof that brilliance doesn't always wear a suit, and leadership doesn't always come with a title. And from that day on, nobody who heard her story ever looked at the invisible people around them the same way again. Denise Atwater's journey was never about luck. It was about being ready when the world finally decided to pay attention. For 13 years, she carried brilliance in silence, waiting for the moment when someone would finally see past the uniform. And when that moment came, she didn't just step into it, she transformed it. Her rise is more than a corporate success story. It's a reminder. A reminder that the person you walk past without a second glance could be carrying talents that could change everything. A reminder that resilience, persistence, and preparation matter more than titles or degrees. And a reminder to anyone who has ever felt invisible, your worth isn't defined by who notices you. Because the truth is, you never know where the next Denise Atwater is standing. She might be at a desk. She might be on a night shift. She might even be in the mirror. So the next time you catch yourself judging someone by their job, their clothes, or their silence, think twice. Brilliance has no dress code.